I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 128, Distrust and Anxiety. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed, because I've been where you are and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Hello, my ladies. How are you? I hope you guys had a great weekend. You guys, my throat is so sore. My son is 9 and he just plays rec league soccer. And this weekend was the championships. It was the playoffs. And we have had the most mellow, very vanilla season. And all of his games have been great, but not very intense. But you guys, they saved the most intense games for last. So he had a game at 9 a.m. yesterday. And we were all there, and at one point we were losing 3-1, and yet they came back and tied 5-5, and then it went into overtime, and his team won 6-5. It was a sudden death overtime, which is the first team to score wins. And you guys, my throat was so sore. So then because they won, they had to play another game, and that one was intense, and we accidentally, you guys, when you play 10 and under rec league soccer, this is what happens. We accidentally scored on ourselves twice and ended up losing the second game. And then we went to my nephew's game and they did the same thing. They ended up coming back and tying their team, and then they went into sudden death overtime, but nobody scored. And so then they go to penalty kicks. Now, for those of you who don't play soccer, this is when they line up, they make them stay a certain distance away from the goal. And then one at a time, they take turns trying to score on the goalie. So it's just one little kid kicking the ball, trying to score them versus the goalie. So they get 5 tries, each of them. So it's like best out of 5. So they did best out of 5 and they were still tied. And so they said, okay, add one more person from the sidelines. And so they did best out of 6 and they were still tied. And it wasn't until they did best out of 7 that my nephew's team won. And then they went immediately into their next game. They didn't even get a rest. They didn't get a break. And they went immediately into their next game, which they ended up losing. And it was so close. Anyway, you guys, I'm not super competitive, but I really love soccer, and I played soccer all growing up and all through high school, and I love it, and it's so fun. And I was screaming. And it was so funny because Dixie, my youngest, she goes to me, she's like, Mom, why do you yell at the players? What does that do? And I was like, I'm yelling at them because I want them to do what I'm yelling at them to do. She's like, can they hear you? And I was like, I don't know, but it makes me feel better. And it was just kind of a funny question because I've never really thought about it. Why do you yell at them? What does that do? Nothing. And it doesn't even really make me feel better, but now it does give me a sore throat. Anyway, but it was a super fun Saturday. We were just at the soccer fields all day long. And it was so fun. And we had such a great time. And I was so proud of these boys. And when my nephew walked off the field, you could tell he was disappointed. And I went over and I talked to him and I said, it's totally okay for you to be disappointed in the result of the game because you did lose. But you should be very proud of how you played. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole nother podcast episode right there, right? It's so hard for our brains to distinguish, and yet it's important to remember because a lot of times our brain wants to forget and not allow us to have a positive emotion when there is something that we have a negative emotion about, right? We might have a negative emotion about the result, but you can be very proud of the way that you showed up, right? The effort that you put in and the way that you came and played and the way that you participated in the situation. And that was just something I thought of you. As soon as I said it, ladies, I thought of you guys because so often there is a result that we are disappointed in, to say the least. And yet when you learn how to manage your brain and how to process your emotions and handle your emotions and stop reacting to your emotions, you can be so proud of yourself for how you showed up, even though the result isn't what you'd hoped for or attempted to create, right? Anyway, little tangent, but soccer was awesome. Okay. And I am so excited to be talking to you guys today because I want to invite you to talk more about trust with me. Trust is the number one, probably at least top three, if not the number one issue that women have when they talk to me, right? When I say, what's the biggest thing that you're struggling with? Trust always comes up, right? For example, I hear so many women say, and I felt this the same way. I was like, look, the pornography thing is bad, but what's worse was the lying. I would rather him just be honest. Why can't he be honest with me, right? The lying bothers me because then we have distrust involved. Then I feel like I can't trust him because he's not honest with me. He's not telling me the things that are going on. So I am doing a How to Trust masterclass this week, and I want to invite you to join me. If you're listening to this week, it's not too late. So by the time this comes out, okay, Monday, October 24th through the 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every day this week, Monday through Thursday, I am doing a How to Trust masterclass. I have done similar ones like this before. If you've come to those, come to this one too, because I'm covering new material, and I have it laid out in a very succinct way. We are going to cover a different concept every single day that kind of builds on each other and give you plenty of time and opportunity to get coaching so that you can not only learn what we're talking about, but also get help applying it to your specific situation. So I want to invite you to come join me. If you go to joleneWynn.com, you can go to the How to Trust tab and you can see what we're going to cover and you can sign up right there. It's $19 for all 4 days. And I can't wait to spend this time with you. And that is kind of what spurred this topic today as I was preparing for it. But one more thing I want to tell you is that if you guys have been thinking about coaching, now is the best time to join because prices are about to go up. On November 15th, prices are going to go up for my coaching program. So if you have been thinking about it, if you know that you want to do it, now is the time. So just head to my website, joleneWynn.com. You can sign up directly online or you can book a free consultation call with me. There is a tab at the top of my website that says book a free consultation call with me today. We can chat about it, or you can just sign up directly. If you know you want to do it, now's the best time. So go ahead, you do the payment plan. There is a discount if you pay in full, and it's about to go up. So you can go to your husband and talk to him about it. Absolutely. Now's the best time because it's never getting any cheaper. It's about to get more expensive. So here we go, ladies. Let's go forward. Okay. And let's talk about distrust. All right. I was thinking about distrust this week as I was preparing for my How to Trust class. And one of the things that came to me was that I think a lot of times we don't even understand or even fully recognize that we don't trust our spouse. And it seems like that wouldn't be it. It kind of feels like that should be something that we recognize pretty much immediately, but it's often masquerading as anxiety. And I think most of the time we think that we are feeling anxious when in fact what we're feeling is distrust. They're very similar. They're both kind of fidgety, kind of settled in your stomach, centered in your stomach, and kind of feel like butterflies, right? It's kind of a high alert kind of emotion, and your brain starts to be super focused. And they feel very similar. And so I think a lot of times when we think we're feeling anxiety, we're actually feeling distrust. So I wanted to go through a couple of examples today and just offer this to y'all so that you can reflect for yourselves and ask yourself, okay, is it that I'm feeling anxious or am I feeling distrust? And if you do realize that it's coming from distrust, then I do want to invite you to come to my masterclass so that we can really dive into it and you can learn more about how to shift that if you want to. So one of the things that happens when we don't trust our spouse is that our brain says, the reason that we don't trust our spouse is that our brain says, okay, we trusted him before and then he did this thing and it caused us some emotional pain. And our brain, again, is wired to avoid emotional pain. And so it says, okay, we want to avoid that thing that created emotional pain. And so our brain starts to look around and say, what was it that caused it? And it says, okay, it's your husband watching porn, right? Or him lying, right? Whatever it is that created the distrust, caused emotional pain, that is what our brain thinks we need to avoid. And so in order to avoid that, our brain starts to look for red flags because it can't actually predict the future. And so what it does instead is trying to take what it learned from the past and look for it so it can try to avoid it. Now, this is actually a super helpful thing that your brain does because it keeps you alive in a lot of situations, right? If you got, almost run over by a car the last time you didn't look both ways when you crossed to the street, then the next time you go to cross the street, your brain's going to say, wait, this is a street. You need to look both ways. And that's really helpful because it might help you avoid danger. But when it's trying to do this in a situation where it's trying to avoid emotional pain rather than a physical pain, often what it does, it ends up just looking for red flags and even just being anxious about red flags that don't even exist yet. Okay, you almost create the red flags simply because you're trying to avoid the situation in the first place. Okay, let's do some examples. Okay, so if, for example, your husband relapsed and he did it when he was on his phone, right? If he's watching porn on his phone, then your brain's going to say, okay, red flag is anytime he's on his phone, right? So even if he's sitting next to you at the kitchen table, if he's on his phone, then your brain might look at that and say, red flag, what's he watching? Okay, and now normally you might say this is anxiety, right? You might say you feel anxious whenever he's on his phone or certain times when he's on his phone. But you have to ask yourself, or you don't have to, but what I want to offer is that you ask yourself, why am I anxious about him on his phone? And it probably could be that the answer is that you don't trust what he's watching. Does this make sense? Do you guys follow me? So usually there's a distrust underneath the anxiety, or it's actually distrust that we misclassify as anxiety. We think it's anxiety, but it's actually distrust. I don't trust what he's watching on his phone. I don't trust him when he takes too long in the bathroom, or he takes showers that are a little longer than normal, or if he's late coming home from work, right? Or I don't trust what he's thinking about when we sit next to each other on the couch and we're watching a movie. You guys, this used to happen to me, and this is one that I hear so many of my clients do, right? Is you're sitting on the couch next to your husband, you're watching a show, right? And there's a romantic scene that comes on, and all of a sudden you feel super anxious. And it's like your brain, again, goes on high alert. So not only do you have that sensation in your stomach, right? You have those butterflies in your stomach, and your blood is pounding, and you can hear your heart pumping in your ears, and your brain is just hyper focused. It's like all of your muscles tense, right? This is because your brain is again saying, red flag, we might die, okay? So it's almost a fear response, but it's an anxiety. It's a heightened alertness that again is a great thing for being in physical danger. But when we are not in physical danger, this is something that our brain is just creating in our minds, right? It says we need to be aware of this because we might die. Because what if him watching this romantic scene is a trigger and then leads to him watching porn, and I don't trust that. I don't trust him to watch this scene and not go watch porn afterward. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Do you guys see this relationship's a very fine line between anxiety and distrust? Now, knowing the difference between them is important because when we think that we're simply being anxious, we think that sometimes that's really a result of his actions. And even the distrust can happen that way as well. We think that we are anxious because of what he's doing. We think that we are feeling distrust because of what he's doing. But what's actually happening is we are feeling a feeling because of the thoughts that we are thinking about it. Okay? It's important to recognize that your brain is wired to respond this way, and that's all that it means. We're going to dive more into this week. So again, I really want to invite you to come. But for now, I just want you to notice that there's nothing wrong with you, and your brain is doing exactly what it's wired to do. But often what we want to do is we want to make this mean something. Almost like intuition, which is a whole nother podcast episode I need to get into because I haven't hit that yet. It's coming, ladies. Don't worry. But often we think that our anxiety or our distrust is intuition. and it feels very righteous and it feels very justified and it feels like we should listen to it and it probably means something. Maybe it means that he's lying. Maybe it means that he's hiding something. And I don't know what situation you're in. Maybe it does mean that. Maybe your husband is hiding something. I don't know. However, I have also had so many clients where their husband is actually doing everything right. And he's being 100% honest and he's going to all the meetings and he hasn't relapsed in many cases years. And yet they're still struggling with this anxiety and this distrust. Why? Because it's not about what he's doing. It's about what you're thinking about it. We often think that distrust is a result of their actions and that there's nothing we can do to help rebuild it. And that is a lie. It's a very bold statement that I have a lot of women that have taken issue with, and that's totally fine. It's not an easy concept because it's not the way that we're taught about it. But I want to offer this to you ladies because it's so vital that you learn how to break down what you've thought about trust and recognize that trust is actually within your control. And this is the best news ever because I can't control him for you. I can't teach you how to change his behavior. If I could, then I would. But what I can teach you is how to change your thoughts about his behavior if you want to. Now, again, I am not saying that you should automatically or that you have to start changing your thoughts so that you trust him. You can. I will teach you how to do it, but you don't have to. But isn't it so much more amazing and empowering to know that you have that option if you choose it than to think that his behavior is creating all of your distrust and breaking your relationship? Ladies, how much more empowering is it to learn and understand that trust is within your control? Not that you have to take it, but that you could if you wanted to. I'm going to go into so much more of this. And you guys, I've done multiple podcast episodes on trust before. You guys can go listen to them. One is called To Trust or Not to Trust. I think it's within like the first 20 episodes. And then there's another one called Conscious Trust. Go listen to those. Okay. And then come to this week because we're going to dive into it more. But trust is not something that just happens to us. It's a result of our own thinking, right? And distrust is simply an emotion that we feel when we're thinking thoughts that lead to that emotion. Thoughts such as, I don't trust what he's watching, right? I don't trust him to be able to watch this show and then not relapse. I don't trust him when he's alone on a trip. I don't trust him to make good choices when I'm not with him. Ladies, I had just had a client that was talking about this, and I had multiple clients actually, and we were talking about this and coaching on this so much in Nashville on our retreat, because when we have this distrust, it kind of tends to run our lives. Again, because our brain is designed and wired to avoid negative emotion. And one of the ways that this can come out is in this really intense desire for control, because we don't trust him on his own and we don't trust what he tells us if we have gone, right? And so it then becomes this kind of obsession and need in a very intense way to always have him with you. Right? Two of my clients were doing this in Nashville. We talked about it so much, right? One of them, she doesn't go to the grocery store by herself. She doesn't go pick up her daughter from school by herself because she always wants him with her, because she has so much anxiety and so much distrust when he's not there with her, when she's not with him. She doesn't trust him to not be with her. Now, this is something that has been going on for a really long time. And what it's created is a difference in the relationship, right? When you have that lack of trust and when you have this need for control, then it creates a whole different relationship where you're almost not even a husband and wife anymore, but you have almost like a babysitter or, a parole officer kind of relationship where you're always on guard and you're always checking them and you second guess everything that they say and all of that. Does this make sense? And that isn't the relationship that she wanted, right? And if you have something like that, like distrust is so important to recognize because it can create a result that we don't want, even to the point where it's affecting the way that we interact with our husband, right? And so I want to offer you guys to, again, to ask that question, where am I feeling anxious and why am I anxious about it? Is there actually some distrust that's underneath that's masquerading as anxiety? Because if that's the case, then that's something I can change if I want to. Remember, ladies, the most empowering thing, the first step in changing anything and actually starting to heal is becoming aware. We can't change what we're not aware of. So if you think that you trust your husband, but you have a lot of anxiety or you feel very anxious about all the things that he's doing, then I want you to just take a look at it and just be curious. There's no self-judgment required, okay? No problem. If you see it, just take a look and just ask yourself from curiosity, is there a place where I feel a lot of anxiety about what he's doing? Why or why not? And then you start from there. Again, awareness is the first step because we have to be able to see something in order to change it, in order to improve it, in order to make it better. And isn't that the whole point? The whole point is to have progression. The whole point is to move forward, ladies. That's why I do what I do, is to help teach you how to go forward, how to improve yourself, how to become the very best version of yourself that you want to be, and how to live the life that you want to have without waiting for your husband to change in order to make that happen. So again, I want to invite you guys to take a look, see where you have some distrust, see where you have some anxiety. Come join me if you want help with it. I'll be here all week. Okay, you can go to my website, again, jolenewind.com, sign up, go for it, and I will see you there. I love you ladies so much, and I'll talk to you guys next week on a brand new episode. So take care. All right, ladies, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take it to the next level, and we actually start applying and learning the how of moving forward. This podcast has taught you the what, and the coaching program is where you're going to learn the how. This is where you learn how to actually start moving forward, process all of that pain that you feel, and let it go once and for all. If you are ready to finally move forward and stop living a life that revolves around your husband's pornography addiction, then I want to invite you to come join me today. Just head to my website, jolenewind.com, and sign up today. I can't wait to see you there.